This is a 14th century Dutch story, and it concerns a father who found himself in possession of that most marvellous thing, a beautiful daughter. And he did what anyone would do in his position. He locked her away in her room, so he could find a rich husband for her. And the only company she had was her maid and her confessor, and the only way she could see the world was to look out of her window. And if this was a different story, then that maid would be up for conspiracies, would assist her mistress to go out into the world for adventures, but this is not that story. For this maid was more concerned about keeping her living and would not anger the girl's father. And if this was a different story, then that confessor would be a fine, young, strapping man, eager to teach the young maid many things, and not all of them that his father would have approved of. But this is not that story. This is a story of a man who actually took his vows quite seriously and taught her manners and godliness and all the education he was supposed to teach her. So all the young girl was left with was her window to look out upon the world. And one day, while she was looking, she saw a handsome young man walk by in the street. And she called her maid to ask who it was. And she saw how well-mannered he was. And the maid told her all about him, how he was of good family, though not rich. And the young girl wondered how they could ever meet. And the next day, when the confessor came, the young girl said, "Oh, please, you must help me. This young man has taken to singing underneath my window. I am being kept in here so I can marry a rich man, and if he does this, my reputation will be ruined, and all this will be for nothing. You must go to him. You must go to him and tell him to stop it." And the confessor was shocked. He knew this young man. He was of good reputation to do such a thing. So he went to the man and said, "How dare you go under that young maid's window? Don't you know she is locked up in there to be kept for a rich husband? Have no shame. Do not let me hear you've done this again." And the young man said, "But I've done nothing." But he was intrigued. And so the next time he was passing that street, he did go and stand underneath the window. And he looked up, and the maiden opened the shutters just a little bit and looked down. And both of them liked what they saw. The next day when the confessor came, the young maid was crying, "Oh, I thought you were going to speak to him. I thought you were going to ask him. He's got more bold. He threw a purse onto my balcony, and it is full of jewels. Here, take it. Give it back to him. Tell him I want nothing to do with him. I am being locked in a room so my virtue can be assured when I marry some old rich man." And so the confessor took the purse to the young man, and the young man looked at the purse and saw it was filled with jewels. And the confessor said, "How dare you? She wants nothing to do with you." And the young man said, "But I didn't," but was very impressed. The next day, when the confessor came to see the maid, and she was in more tears than ever before, "I thought you were going to talk to him. He has got more bold. He has found that there's a gateway 3 doors down from here that's never locked. And if you go in, there's a ladder and no one will notice if you take it. And he took it and he put it underneath my balcony. He came up and knocked on my shutters. And if I hadn't hidden underneath the bed, I just don't know what would have happened." And the confessor was outraged. And he ran to the young man and said, "You, just because you found about that ladder, just because the gate 3 doors down was open, just because no one had noticed you take it, doesn't mean you can take that ladder, put it against her balcony and climb up and knock on her shutters. And if she hadn't hidden underneath the bed, I cannot bear to think what would have happened to both of your immortal souls. And if I hear one more complaint from this virtuous young maid concerning you, I will have you run out of this town, your reputation in ruins." And the young man said, "I promise you, you will never hear another word of complaint about me from that girl." professor never did.